This is the second instance of the Tampa Bay Regional GIS Data and Technology Group. I haven't really thought of a pithy name instead of that. Today, I have a few PowerPoint slides, but again, like this is same as the first meeting. There's just a few. It's mostly a mechanism to keep me on track and to run a tight meeting and make sure I'm just being aware of the time. All right, hopefully second slide is showing up. So the agenda today is just welcoming everybody. And then I just want to quickly recap the group goals, just for anybody who might be new. And then Nate Herold's on, and he's gonna do a presentation about NOAA's CCAP land cover. And I appreciate Nate jumping on because Dave Stein wasn't able to make it today. And then after that, we'll go over the sign up details for that NOAA mapping coastal inundation course. So I'm hoping we get a lot of takers from this group on that course. I took it in Gainesville in November. It was really great. And then I wanted to follow up with the survey that I released at the last meeting, and just I kind of have some summary slides about those results and how those can help direct the group going forward. And then having a discussion later on with all of you to see what's going on with you and maybe what you want from this group that we might have not talked about yet. And then just some next steps after that. So this is the quick group goals for anybody who's new. The point of this group is to get everybody from the TBRPC region, which is Citrus, Hernando, Pasco, Pinellas, and Hillsborough counties, Manatee County also, and all the municipalities within, should just get together, the GIS folks, and share, challenges. And hopefully the big one for me is identifying and resolving data gaps that we find in the region and reducing duplicated GIS efforts that are going on. I'm kind of seeing a lot of that through different projects that I'm touching. So that's certainly important for me, and I'm guessing a lot of you. And then also I want to facilitate technical assistant opportunities through this group. Like that NOAA class would be one of them, but also to help connect GIS staff at the city and county level with state and federal agencies. And then also hoping to create some connections with higher education institutions. So that's kind of my spiel. I'm going to hand it off to Nate. Nate's going to present to us for about 15 minutes or so about CCAP. And then we'll have about 5 minutes or so for questions after that. So I'm going to stop sharing. And Nate, let me know if you have any issues sharing out.
Okay, let's give it a shot. Yeah, so thanks for having me. My name's Nate Herold. I am a physical scientist with NOAA's Office for Coastal Management. I work in the same group as Dave Stein. That's our Science and Geospatial Division within OCM. But unlike Dave, I'm not out in our region or in the regions. I sit in one of our co-headquarters offices in Charleston, South Carolina, and I'm kind of the lead on the land cover and wetland mapping and monitoring work that we do through our coastal change analysis program. I know Dave is sorry that he wasn't able to make it and be with you all. He's kind of our regional representation in the Gulf Coast. So he and Matt Pendleton kind of split some responsibilities for Florida. But he is local to your area, so I imagine he'll be at a large number of these meetings in the future. Unfortunately, he had a lot of damage to his previous house with the storms that you all have had recently, and fortunate for him, he was able to, I think, go out and settle on a new house today. So couldn't keep him from that. So what I'm hoping to do is just give you a little bit of an introduction to our office. I don't think Dave has done that for you all in the past. Talk a little bit about our Digital Coast effort, and then really spend most of my time talking about some of the high resolution land cover data that we have for the Tampa area. And it doesn't necessarily cover all the counties that you all are probably interested in, but I think it'll cover a decent portion of those, and maybe be something that can be used for those counties and that you might have interest in the other counties, as NOAA is able to build out some of these products over the more complete state and the complete coastal areas of the U.S. in the future. So OCM, you can see here some of our major initiatives in the Coastal Zone Management Program, the National Estuarine Research Reserves, the Coral Reef Conservation Effort, and Digital Coast. Those are kind of the four main programmatic areas that OCM kind of holds ownership and responsibility for. I don't know if you do much work with, say, the Rookery Bay Reserve. It's a little south of you all, but I think that's the closest one. I'm going to talk a little bit about Digital Coast. Digital Coast is both a platform where we make available a lot of data, tools, training, and kind of case studies and example stories around those data, tools, and training for the coastal areas of the U.S. It's not what I would call a one-stop shop, but it is very focused in on coastal issues and coastal data. So I'd certainly say it's one of the first stops that a lot of folks would probably be interested in for grabbing things like LiDAR data, land cover data, some imagery data sets, accessing those trainings like the one you're going to be talking a little bit more about later this morning. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of emphasis here, but really the whole point behind that is it's not just a data clearinghouse, right? We're putting the data out there, yes, and that's what a large percentage of users might come for, but we want to make sure that people know how that data could be used, that they have access to training to help them make that use of the data, and that they can kind of take it to that next step. In addition to the website, the Digital Coast is also a partnership. It's made up of, I think, the 8 or 9 agencies that you can see listed there, including folks like the American Planning Association, floodplain managers, coastal counties, and all the other ones that you see listed here. And this is really kind of good for us because it provides a lot of feedback on what it is that we're providing within the website, and allows us and them to work together to kind of achieve common goals. Talked a lot already about the data. I'm not going to spend too much time talking anymore about that, other than the fact that we've got a lot of data that's available out there. If you've got any questions, Dave's a great resource on the data sets that are available, the tools, and everything else that's there. We do have over 80 different decision support tools, so it's not a list of every tool that exists. We really kind of curate that list to really focus in on the ones that we think are highly useful for coastal focused applications, and that we know folks can get access to without having to purchase those tools, and that can be used by folks for moving their work ahead and making progress. Okay, so now I'm going to transition a little bit here, and we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about the land cover data that we make available through our Coastal Change Analysis program. Just to give you a little bit of an idea, if you're not familiar with CCAP, we've been around for a long time, since the mid-90s. We are recognized by the FGDC as NOAA's source for authoritative land cover data within the coastal portions of the U.S. And you can see what we consider coastal highlighted in all the blue areas on this graphic. For most of our history, we've really worked very closely with folks like the USGS, Forest Service, and other federal agencies at the national level to produce products from Landsat imagery. So 30-meter pixel resolution was the kind of the most detailed data sets that we've had in the past. And really the idea was that we always keep these products up to date on roughly a 5-year cycle, so that folks can see not just the land cover data and the current condition, but they get information about where changes are occurring and what those trends look like over the longer term. More recently, however, we've really focused on transitioning away from those 30-meter products towards producing higher resolution, more spatially detailed versions of those data sets. This isn't necessarily something new for us, but historically it's been pretty expensive to produce those products. And really what we've seen is that over the last couple of years in particular, the computing power, cloud-based resources, as well as improvements to the kind of the quality and accuracy of AI in use in this type of classification really has made the production of these data sets become faster, cheaper, and better. And I'm going to throw a huge caveat that most people who talk about AI and its use for producing these kind of products don't. In that when I say faster, I don't mean fast. When I say cheaper, I don't mean cheap. And when I say better, I don't mean perfect, right? These tools are helping us do those things, but it's not a magic click of the button. There's still a lot of work that we find that has to go into the production of those land cover products to make them high quality and fit for use, right? We see a lot of examples of what I'd call fast and cheap land cover. And there's a lot of blemishes in those data sets if you look closely. On initial blush, they might look great, but you might find as you try to use them that they don't really support the use that you're looking for. And kind of our end goal here is to kind of build out a current date of land cover. We've focused in on 2020 and 2021 is our starting point. And we hope to finish kind of a national build out of those products over the next year or two so that we can kind of start operationally updating them starting in 2026 and do that every 4 to 6 years from now into the future. So just to kind of reiterate the difference between some of those 30-meter and 1-meter products, I think this one kind of drives it home. You can see the individual 30-meter pixels in this data. It really quite obviously isn't built for use at the local level. And really what we've heard from our users is that that's what they need, right? Regional, national level data sets are great, but really most folks are working at a much more local or site-specific level than that. And so, in this instance, all these white areas are the impervious cover for this area. You can see a couple of highways and some intersections going through there. And really the 30-meter data doesn't support a whole lot of analysis at that level. Same's true in rural environments where a lot of what you'd want to see in terms of the road networks, the driveways, the yards and houses aren't things that 30-meter data is going to pick up very well. And in my opinion, especially in wetland environments, that's particularly of importance, especially if you're looking at areas that might be starting to get impacted by sea level rise or climate change. The changes that you see in these wetland environments in terms of edge erosion or kind of the breakup of the marsh platform are things that occur at a scale that is much smaller than what 30-meter imagery can see. So what do we have? Back in January of 2024, we released kind of the first national level data sets that moved us in this direction. We focused in on a subset of categories, essentially impervious surfaces, woody vegetation canopy, both shrub and tree height vegetation, as well as water features. And there were a couple of reasons. This is what we could afford with the money that we were given by the bipartisan infrastructure legislation that was passed. These are the first steps that we would go in a full, complete land cover mapping if we were to do that everywhere. And these are really the pieces that we felt like lended themselves to being done in a fairly high level of accuracy and quality utilizing some of those AI tools. You can see here kind of the area of coverage for that data. It includes all of Florida with the exception of a small area around the Air Force Base and the Panhandle there where the data was redacted. But you can see kind of the extent in the coastal area otherwise. And you can see an example of what some of the products look like. This isn't for an area in Florida. I apologize for that. This is an area outside of Detroit in Michigan. But it was something that I had available pretty easily to pull in as an example. This is the imagery itself. And this kind of gives you an idea of what that impervious cover looks like, as well as what the size of some of the features that we're mapping in that impervious data are. And so we map things that are as small as 100 square feet in terms of buildings, roads, railroads, and pavement. We have a data set that includes all of those features, but unfortunately, due to the licensing, we're really only releasing a product that kind of combines those all into one generic impervious category. Just for context, we already talked about the fact that data covers all of Florida. This is what that extent looks like nationwide. It includes over 1.5 million square miles. We produced all of this data in about an 18-month period, which For context, our 30-meter updates in the past, which didn't include Alaska, would have taken us 4 or 5 years to kind of work through. So not only are we producing more detailed data, but we're doing it faster than we used to in the past. Well, that was in there twice. Sorry about that. And it's a big improvement over even some of the high resolution products that we were producing even just a year or two ago. There is a use restriction associated with the data, but for the data sets that we are distributing publicly, really that only just comes down to you can use it for just about anything that you want, as long as you are not trying to utilize it as a source for training to produce a similar type of product. And this was just kind of a use restriction that we negotiated with the contract company Ecopia that produced this data for us, so that we could make sure that their intellectual property rights were protected, that some other company or university didn't come along, download all of that data, and try to start out competing them in the marketplace because they didn't have any of that investment costs. All right, so those data sets are data sets that are available in our Digital Coast right now. You can download those and work with them, but that's not our end goal. We want to take the foundation that those initial products provide and build those out into a full CCAP scheme land cover that maps things beyond just the impervious canopy and water data. Really gets down to kind of the 20 categories that we feel like our users have come to know and love us for. If you're not familiar with CCAP, this is a complete listing of all of the categories that we map within our products. The ones in bold are the ones that come, at least in starting, from those initial products. So we take that impervious data, the canopy data, the water data. We do make some tweaks to that to improve the accuracy of those products. And then we expand upon that mapping to pick up all of the other features that you see here. Open space developed, cultivated pasture hay, kind of some of the land use related categories that we map. And I'll note in Florida in particular, we make use of a lot of the water management district data to get at those categories, so that it's very consistent with the products that they produce, as well as all the wetland categories that you see listed down the right-hand side of your slide there. And in that instance, we make use of a lot of the national wetland inventory, as well as those data sets from the water management districts, again, so it makes a nice connection to those products and helps us get a good starting point on that mapping without us having to start from scratch and be inconsistent. Here are the areas where we have that data. You can see we have an 11 county area around Houston and Galveston, and then 5.5 counties here in Tampa. I think I have a slide that shows that in a little bit more detail in a second. Here's some of the folks that we work with to kind of co-fund or produce that data. This isn't a very high quality graphic, but a little bit more zoomed in terms of the area where we have that data available now in Tampa. It includes Pasco, Pinellas, Manatee, Sarasota, Hillsborough, and the western portion of Polk County that's in that same watershed. You can also see here we have 2 areas where we are currently just starting to do that same level of work now. 6 counties up around Apalachicola, as well as 4 counties where we're working with the GTM NER in Northeast Florida. And so these 2 data sets are data sets that we hope to release later this fiscal year, sometime late summer or hopefully early fall. And then this is just a kind of a zoom in on the data to give you an idea about what that data looks like. You can see our classification scheme here and the level of detail that we're capturing in those products in this Manatee County example. And then finally, I'll just end by highlighting that if you're not familiar with land cover data in general or how it can be used, we've got this great URL where we've started to collect those types of application examples and connected that to what we call stories from the field in our Digital Coast. So you can go in and take a look at a lot of the different types of applications that I have listed here. And see how some of our partners have made use of these data sets or similar data sets in the past to address these issues. We actually highlighted in this slide just a few that were actually examples that were pulled from Florida, including the use of the impervious data that I mentioned early on that fed into the statewide vulnerability assessment that was done. Pinellas County has been utilizing this pretty heavily in some of their stormwater management, helping them get a better idea on how water is moving across the landscape as it hits things like impervious surfaces and the other land cover types. and we've started to see it really get used to help address urban heat risks. So, urban heat islands are a pretty big topic around the country, where high amounts of impervious surfaces exist with low canopy areas of coverage. What you can really use these things for is to help you identify places where trees could be planted to help mitigate those risks and improve the quality of life there for folks in the area. And I think, yep, that's the end of my presentation. I think I pretty much kept time, so I'll give myself a pat on the back for that. And if you do have any questions, I'm happy to take them. My contact information is here, along with Dave and Matt, who I mentioned earlier, as well as a couple of links to that URL that we just talked about in terms of the applications, but also the URL where you can access our high-res data.
Hey, Nate. Excuse me. Hey, Nate. This is Corey from the Southwest Florida Water Management District. I know we've met and talked a few times, and like you mentioned, you guys are using some of our land use land cover data. And I would, it's great data. It's moving in the right direction. I love where it's going. I hope it kind of continues to evolve and maybe get a little bit more granular. And one thing that I know I've said to you and I've said to some of our state folks as we've talked about this data, that we all kind of agree, like raster is faster, but vector is more corrector. And so at some point, if we can get access, whether it's some agreement with the vendor or, whether it just becomes part of the contract in the future to get kind of the vector data and those codes attached to the vector as opposed to the raster, I think that would be much more beneficial to us. At this point, it's just a picture for us. And while it's a great product, it doesn't really help us too much other than kind of visually comparing things. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Yeah, so I have a whole wide range of responses to that. So, the more detailed vector data that we produce, the buildings, footprints, the road vectors, those are all things that can be purchased from our vendor at additional cost. The downside is that there is an additional cost. The upside is that because we've already funded the development of the data, you're going to get it at a much lower cost than you would if you were talking to them and they had to develop it from scratch. So that certainly is a possibility if you're interested in that. On the other front, if there are things that you'd like to do with the existing data that we have, let's talk. In the past, that raster, faster, vector, corrector kind of thing has always been kind of the saying, but really kind of what I've found is that in our recent history, we move very fluidly back and forth between vector and raster, and it's almost like things don't exist in one or the other anymore. So I think, we could help you out with some of the things that you might want to do with that data. The main reason that we serve it out the way that we do as a raster is because it's a pixel-based product from imagery, and we're deriving all of our line work associated with the boundaries from that imagery. It looks like that even if you make it a vector. And essentially, the rasters become now the smaller data set to distribute than the vectors with all of the detailed vertices that they'd end up having.
Yeah, definitely storage is a problem, right? And downloading and all that. We were talking about it at the state level as well with our other group that we coordinate with Kim Jackson at the Florida GIO and the Water Management Districts, DEP. We have a quarterly meeting we've held for 20 plus, almost 30 years, I believe. And we're starting to talk about how we might change this at the state level. But if I had a magic wand and I had a wish related to this, it would be that we don't have two different products. We have one product that meets the needs. And so I don't know, maybe 5, 10, 15 years down the road, some kind of marriage exists where this takes place and it meets all the needs that we have, but also, perhaps it's a cooperative funding type thing. I'm not sure, but that would be great instead of kind of this duplicative effort where they're different. They're similar, but they're different, and they have different uses, but they're similar enough that I don't know. I see a potential down the road for some sort of coordination.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I mean, that's where I'd love to go as well. I think what we're currently doing is the first step on that process where we've at least not reproduced your wheel, right? We're taking pieces of your data and incorporating it to our data. I think the next steps on that would be in the next iteration. If we were to map from the same date of imagery as you, for instance, that would have kind of further made those products a lot more consistent. And then in future iterations of the land use, if our data could start to feed into that, that might make for a nice cycle there. And there might always be some differences between cover and use, at least in the urban environments. But I do agree that we can get a lot closer and start to save more and more money and less duplicative efforts.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Marcus, I see your hand up.
Yeah, hey Nate, this is Marcus back at the Tampa Bay Estuary Program. Appreciate you talking about these products, and I'm super happy that Tampa Bay was one of the first areas to have the total land cover for CCAP. I don't necessarily have a question, more just a plug, I guess. You had a slide that was showing examples of how CCAP has been used in applications. We recently at the Estuary Program used CCAP for an evaluation of how it might guide some of our habitat protection and restoration work. We have about in 2020, so a couple years ago, we produced an update to our habitat master plan, which is a planning document of how we approach the protection and restoration of native habitats in our watershed, as well as within the bay itself. And that relied on the SwiftMud 30-meter resolution raster products. And so we went through this exercise last year of comparing how those areas were captured using the SwiftMud data and the higher resolution CCAP data to see if there are alternatives or more areas identified that weren't captured by the more coarser resolution data products. So I just wanted to mention that we went through that process and produced a report that I just linked in the chat. This was actually conducted by FWC. We worked in partnership with them to do this. And if any of you have an interest in hearing more about that, I think we are trying to have one of the authors present on this at our next TAC meeting, which is going to be March 19th. So I just wanted to put a plug in for that. But again, great data products. Super happy that this is available for our region, and look forward to seeing how other people use these in the future. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll just say thank you for that. That is great. I will certainly be following up with you and Dave or I will be to see if you guys would be interested in kind of helping us document that on our website as one of our stories from the field, which is really just a very short kind of overview of what might be in your report. And I should mention that the work that we did in Tampa Bay was actually thanks to some funding that we got from EPA. So in a lot of ways, your federal headquarters were the ones that helped make sure that this was one of our first geographies.
Yeah, probably no coincidence.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Nate? Hey, thanks so much, Nate, for doing this. I really appreciate it. Okay, I'm gonna try and share again. You guys see my messy screen or good screen?
Good screen.
All right. I don't ever think I'll get used to that. Let's see. Okay, so something that I'm hoping that there'll be some interest from this group is TBRPC has invited NOAA to hold their coastal inundation mapping course at our offices in Pinellas Park. And I'm guessing this might be relevant to some folks on the call since we had the crazy storm season in 2024. Again, I took the class in Gainesville in November. It was really great. It's 2 days, and they've just converted everything to ArcGIS Pro. So it's for folks that, anybody that has like 6 months plus, I think, of GIS experience and is working in this coastal inundation and resilience space. This might be for you. Emergency response folks might also find this helpful. So let me get to the next slide here. Megan, can you drop that registration link in the chat, please? And I'll send this out when I send the follow-up items later today. But it's a pretty good deal because the course is free, and TBRPC is gonna buy lunch and everything because we're not really in a walkable area. So if you want to come hang out with us for a couple of days and learn a lot, you just need to have ArcGIS Pro loaded on your machine. Spatial Analyst is great. If you don't have it, NOAA can help with that. And we're limited to 25 participants. So if you're interested, I would suggest signing up soon because I think that we're going to have a little bit of a wait list going pretty soon. So let me know if anybody has any questions about that.
Ashley, where's that course going to be?
It's going to be at our offices, Corey. We're in Pinellas Park. So yeah, if I don't know if that's like a day trip for you. That's not too bad from where you're at, right?
No, not too bad. No.
Okay. And if anybody needs any help, if you do feel like it's kind of a trek and you want to get a hotel, I can make some suggestions on that too. All right. Any more questions on the course? Great. Okay, so last meeting, the first meeting we had in December of this group, I sent out a ArcGIS survey 1, 2, 3, just asking a few questions about things like, what do you want out of this group? And instead of making kind of an annoying word cloud, I thought I would just summarize those here. And it looks like we're pretty much TBRPC is in alignment with what the region is looking for. So a lot of people just said making connections, sharing tech and IT hurdles was one, which I think is important for me to remember because I'm pretty focused on data. So I want to incorporate more of the technology and IT piece of GIS in our meetings later on. But some of the other things were just collaboration, resolve data gaps, share products, apps, data, educational opportunities, and share GIS standards. A couple more slides on the survey results. I asked in one of the questions, I said, hey, is there something that you're working on that you think might benefit the whole region or might be transferable to other folks, different communities? And a few people responded. And I kind of have an ask of these folks later on, but as I call these out, if representatives from these agencies want to jump on and talk through it. SwiftMud, I think that was you, Corey, that mentioned the small area population projections, which has been most helpful to me recently. And you mentioned the land use land cover. Did you want to say anything about that, Corey, or drop
Sure.
links in the chat?
Yeah. For those that may not know, I know the land use land cover is one of our most downloaded data sets on our open data portal that you
Kate's
can
giving a
find.
thumbs up.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I was saying
Okay.
Kate's giving you thumbs up right now.
Yeah, so basically we fly imagery now every 3 years for about the last 10 years or so. Before that, we did it annually or we did it 5 years apart, but the last 10 years or so, it's been every 3 years. And then we follow that up with mapping land use land cover. And I won't go into too much detail of that, but currently we last 3 cycles, we've been using vendors for that to kind of do a semi-automated object orientation kind of approach, segmentation analysis, and then they do some manual work. And essentially deliver the district-wide 16 county land use land cover. So 2023 is finished, but it's being QC'd independently. We've done our own QC, but we like to have kind of a report to point to that makes sure it meets our standards, which is 85% accuracy. So that should be done by the end of March, early April, and that'll be available for download then, but not until that report is completed. So it's much faster than it used to be. It'd take 2 to 3 years to do it before, the way we used to do it. So it's about 11 to 12 months now to get completed, and then another few months to get it QC'd. And of course, we have to wait for the imagery to be completed as well. So there's a process there. But yeah, look for that late March, early April for the 2023. And then we're already planning to fly the 2026 district-wide imagery, already gearing up for that project as well. And so sometime in 27, early 28, you'll look for that 26 product. And then the small area population projections. So per Florida statutes, the water management districts have to consider the University of Florida's Bureau of Economic and Business Research's population projections. And they do that to a small, medium, and high projection. And that data is available from Bieber, from UF's Bieber, in kind of tabular format. There's some PDFs and there's some tables, but there really isn't anything that you could use in GIS to aggregate and intersect, aggregate, and sum to any jurisdiction you want to. So for the last 18 years, we've been using vendors to create that, and we basically do it on an annual basis because it's driven by our water use, public supply water use permitting process, because we have to have something to compare to what the utility is coming in and saying, based on how many people they serve and how many people they're serve in the future in the life of their permit, they need to come up with a gallons per day. And so we have to have something that compares to that. So we use that data for our water use permitting, as well as our regional water supply plan, which is statutorily required to be completed every 5 years. So that data is available on our external open data portal, and it's at the parcel level. And so there's a population estimate for each parcel. So that would be last year's. So it would be 2022 or 2021's population estimate, meaning how many people they think were actually living in that area or that parcel at the time. And then there's projections every 5 years out to 2050 currently. And there's different fields in there and explained in the metadata. If anybody has any questions about that data, it's really cool data. I think it's underutilized. I've used it for a fire department wanted, to use it for budgeting in the future and where to build future fire stations. Like I said, we use it for those other purposes, and we have other examples, but that's really neat data. It's at the parcel level, it's district wide, and it's population estimates and projections. So let me know either here or reach out to me later if you have any questions. Thanks, Ash.
Yeah, thank you, Corey. Yeah, Kate's saying, please post the link. And Marcus, I see your question up here about the Helene layer. I'm not sure if I know exactly what you're looking for, but I have a couple ideas that I can send you.
Yeah, just a map, or a map would be great, but also the source data for just the coverage of peak flood from Helene.
Okay.
I remember seeing projections before the storm hit, but I never found anything after the fact.
Yeah, I've been using the Army Corps, had like kind of like a GIS layer from the SAR. I don't know if that will help, but I can send you a couple things.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, and then is there anybody from Fort Pinellas on? I don't think so,
I'm here.
but oh, okay, cool. Hey, Linda, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I did a survey in December, and I think I can't remember who from Fort Pinellas put the Live Local Act dashboard on there, but I thought it was really cool. I checked it out. And can you speak to this?
Absolutely. I think it was Jared Austin from our agency who has unfortunately moved on, but he and my colleague Emma Winnick created this Live Local Act dashboard. So the Live Local Act is a state preemption law that allows developers to override certain zoning regulations, like for density and height, if they provide a certain percentage of affordable housing. So it's really hard to know where that density is going since it doesn't correlate with anyone's zoning maps. So we created this app to track where those projects are going in. None have been completed yet. The law is only, I think, 2 years old, but a number have been proposed. And I'll go ahead and drop the direct link in through the chat. But yeah, we're excited about it. And we contact our local governments every month to find out if there are any new projects that have been proposed under this act.
Yeah, I wish that I had access to something that was region-wide, like this same application is really cool. I encourage anybody that's kind of touching that space to check it out. And let's see, the next one was, oh, I think that, is Lauren on? I don't think she joined, but Lauren was working on, a disaster dashboard for the 2024 hurricane season. And I'm thinking that she might be done with this now, so I'll see if I can follow up with her and share this out to you all, but it sounded like a really interesting product. And then, oh, Hillsborough County, I saw Sarah, you're on, right? Sarah Sillers?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Sarah, did you want to talk to, I just saw in the survey that you mentioned the evacuation zones update, like some other folks in the region might be interested in that. And then also the analysis you did on like landing pads.
Yeah, for the evacuation zones update, just for everyone's awareness, we don't have a lot of documentation on how they were done historically. So we're just doing a deep dive into all available resources and trying to determine a new process that we want to use going forward. And perhaps it could be, if we can build out a model with all the documentation and share it out if anyone else wants to use it. This is going to be a long-term endeavor. Like we're just starting it literally like a couple weeks ago. So we're anticipating to kind of get the process ironed out this year and then do the update next year. But if anyone is interested in kind of brainstorming or discussing that, let me know. And then for the landing pads, I mentioned this in our last meeting that we did an analysis, kind of like a suitability criteria, to find alternative temporary landing locations during a storm if the normal landing pads get flooded. So I don't have anything available to show right now, but if anyone's interested in seeing what we did with that, I'd be happy to share. I'll put my email in the group chat if anyone wants to reach out.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sarah. Looks like Renee from Pinellas County is interested in the evac zones. Okay, and then Marcus, I saw in the survey that you had just put like kind of like a catch-all for like all your dashboards and all the cool stuff that you're doing. Did you want to mention anything else?
Yeah, I guess not all of it really qualifies as spatial or GIS oriented, but just real quick, since I've been at the program for the last 5 years or so, it's been my main job to sort of open up a lot of our processes and workflows for reporting on indicators of bay health. So, a lot of these products have already existed, but they're now available in more or less an open science or open source fashion. So you can see a lot of that on the links that I provided. If you really have an interest in doing a deeper dive, we try to post nearly all of our workflows on GitHub. So if you're curious in the super nitty gritty of how we do this, you can get to that information there. But just an overview, we have most of it's water quality oriented. So, products related to status and trends on water quality in the bay. There's information on habitat status and trends, fisheries, benthic health. All of that is there. And just as an additional add-on to that, we don't collect a lot of this information, but we do try to serve it up in a way that is useful to inform management actions around supporting Tampa Bay. So just a plug for our partners we work with that actually collect this information. SwiftMud, we rely on a lot of the data that you guys produce, but others as well on this call. So it wouldn't be possible without the long-term data collection that others have done. And if there's any questions about any of those products, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to answer any questions or work with anybody on this call to how we can improve them. So that's what that's about.
Awesome. Thanks, Marcus. I kind of have an idea for one of our upcoming meetings that'll speak to these examples. So I'll get to that a little bit later. But just closing out the survey slides. I just wanted to go over the regional data gaps that we used a big chunk of the December meeting to talk through. So big shout out to Kate at UF Geoplan Center and Crystal also for helping me through some of these. So Megan, if you want to drop that SharePoint link in the chat, it's kind of like a messy Word document for now, but I thought at least, getting it to you all, you can do Control F and find the thing that you care about, or just look for your name and hopefully you have a resolution there. There was a few things that I wasn't able to resolve, but I'll keep working on those. And later on in the discussion, I'm kind of hoping to talk through with y'all, like maybe some platform ideas that you might have of how it could support this work in a more organized and palatable way, as opposed to like a messy Word doc or, whatever flat file I might be working on that day. So we'll get to that, but there's, all kinds of stuff on there. Lots of data around housing. Fire hydrants was pretty difficult. And you can see the list here. And then there was kind of like a general ask for, I think this was from St. Pete, about emergency response and recovery data. So I pointed them to Renee of Pinellas County is hosting a regular meeting about that data specifically. Renee, can I put you on the spot so you can just talk about that group really quick for anybody that's in Pinellas County?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. And I knew I had it coming because I'm always putting you on the spot. So specifically, for the recovery efforts in Pinellas, we've got kind of 5 separate recovery groups and then a data working group, which provides data, GIS, maps, applications to serve the recovery effort. Right now, we're kind of heavy into little data requests for a lot of the funding efforts that are going on right now. So as people are putting together their action plans for HUD funding or any kind of FEMA assistance, travel trailers, where can we put them? Where can't we put them? So we're kind of fielding quite a bit of those requests. Historical resources, identifying priority areas for surveys and mitigation efforts on that. So we're pulling a lot of those data sets together, and then my goal is to kind of transition a lot of our work into the planning efforts for next hurricane season. And just at the county level, we're working with our cities. Alex Boswell is actually taking the lead on that, working with the city utility contacts and developing a more comprehensive data set or geodatabase for the utility network countywide. we have 24 municipalities, as some of you may know. So coordinating that is difficult. And that was one of the things that came out from 2024 is, especially from the resident side, how do we present data, applications, basic communication to all residents in the county and not just unincorporated Pinellas, so that we're kind of coordinating our data so that we can coordinate our communications more holistically, and not cutting out some particular cities just because they manage their own data set. We'd like to have the presentation side be kind of broad and open. I don't know if that answered your question. I kind of ran with it.
That's okay, Renee. Thank you. All right, so this kind of segues nicely into the discussion topic that I wanted to start off with. Because as I was saying, that document that Megan dropped in the chat that just has all the data gaps, and it's a crazy Word document. And just as I was putting through all the materials from the last meeting, I was like, I got to figure out some sort of platform to support the group's work. And I wanted to pick your brains, steal your ideas about what I could do there. I was looking at like, oh, could I do a hub site, or should it be like a newsletter or some sort of blog site where I can maintain the information that we collect, and like especially the regional data gaps, like identifying those and the resolutions. I feel like that needs to live somewhere. I just haven't quite figured out what that should look like and what you all might want to see out of that. Does anybody have any ideas about what that could be, aside from the few examples that I dropped? Well, I'll keep brainstorming on that. I don't want it to be annoying. I know we all get a lot of correspondence. So I'll start researching a little bit harder, and maybe I can present a few options in the next meeting, and see if you guys like it. Because just looking at the, I want this group to be meaningful to everybody on here, and increase the attendance. I'm not seeing any folks from our northern counties on here, so I want to be able to drive membership of the group and help make those connections. Like, that makes me super happy that Renee and Sarah are going to link up about the evac zones. So just creating those connections and facilitating that. Okay, and then I wanted to get to like an open discussion. Is there anything that's not happening so far with this group or this meeting that you would like to see, like in the region? A lot of us, I think several people on the call can relate to this. Like, you might be the only GIS person, or maybe your GIS group kind of works in isolation from a lot of other of the departments in your agency. And so I really want to use this group to, knock out any of the needs that you might have for collaboration. Maybe you need somebody to like review your work. Like I use that frequently because I'm the only GIS person at my work. So I constantly need review from external folks to do a good job. So let me know, anybody want to pipe up, and do you have any ideas for this group that you want to see that isn't happening so far?
I have an ask. Shannon
Okay,
Cox, Manatee County
Shan.
Public Safety. Hey, because myself and my counterpart, Mr. Ryan Clark, are so new to public safety, if there's anybody on here that is familiar with the CAD rollouts, the 911 CAD rollouts, that can, kind of like look over the documentation that we have. And I'm just trying to make connections I did attend the LEAP conference in the last couple of weeks, and I made a bunch of contacts through that. But if there's anybody local that can kind of, sit down with us and just kind of go over our documentation and see if they can identify any spots for improvements.
Cool, Shannon, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I don't know if anybody else is touching that from this group.
We have another GIS manager that handles the 911 and CAD data. I could put you in contact with him, Shannon.
That would be phenomenal, and I appreciate it very much.
Okay.
And this is Renee from Pinellas. We've got folks that are working on the new CAD rollout here too. We have a whole kind of contracted team under partly under our sheriff and then partly under safety and emergency services. So I can reach out to you too. And then I think Ashley, maybe just like, and I don't know what it would look like, but a list of who manages what data set. Basically something that could answer the question that Shannon just had. I'm looking for CAD, and this person listed CAD as one of the things that they work on. That would be really valuable, I think, for us, just to manage partners and know exactly who, in emergency management, it's all about, who and being able to get a hold of them when you need them. So that would be helpful for us.
Okay, thanks for that suggestion.
And I dropped
Ashley's-
my,
Oh,
I
go
sorry, I
ahead.
dropped my contact in the chat if for anybody that will reach out to me.
Hey, this is Corey. I was just saying, no, this is a good start, and I appreciate you for taking the initiative and putting it together. I know that's not always easy, and getting folks involved. I think the group will grow, and anytime there's an opportunity for others to share something interesting you're doing with GIS, how you're doing it, even if it doesn't relate to everybody, it still might, as far as the exact data sets, it still might spark an idea or help them with something they're working on. And I would say to that, if there are volunteers or you're asking for volunteers in the future to present, I would recommend it does not have to be a PowerPoint. It doesn't have to be a formal thing. It could be 5 minutes. You share your screen, you open up ArcGIS Pro or whatever the platform is, and you show us, because then it takes the burden off of them as far as like an additional workload or assignment. That's just my
Yeah.
suggestion here.
No, that's an awesome suggestion, Corey. After this slide, I was gonna get to kind of like a similar ask. So, yeah, if anybody else has any other ideas, please, speak up, or you can drop them in the chat or let me know at a later point if something comes to mind. I kind of want to get to what Corey just spoke about. So quickly, before I move on from the slide, though, I just wanted to let you know about a couple things that are happening that are TBRPC related. So like every year in my work, we do this big resiliency summit. And one of the aspects of the summit is what is called the Future of the Region Awards. And it's essentially like celebrating cool projects in the region from our member governments. So last year, Citrus County GIS, they were recognized for their damage assessment app. And I just wanted to mention this, like if you're looking to get some recognition from your group, and you're a member government of TBRPC, and you have a cool project, let me know. Maybe it's something we could nominate for the Future of the Region Awards, and your group can get that recognition that they deserve. And then also, I don't have a formal link for this now, but my colleague Amy is putting together a vulnerability assessment open forum on March 4th. So if you're working on a VA and you kind of want to talk all things VA, including the GIS aspects, let me know and I'll send you the invite. Okay. So kind of on to what Corey just mentioned is I wanted to talk through some next steps and like what the next few group meetings are going to be. Just quickly, next meeting I have FTEM GIS presenting. Daniel, who some of you might know, is the GIS admin for FDEM, and he's going to be joining us and presenting. And if you want to drop any questions that might come to mind immediately in the chat, so I could prep him to help him develop his presentation, please feel free to do that. And then back to Corey, I had asked Corey yesterday if he would consider presenting to us in August. And I think that was cool with you, Corey. Let me know.
Yes.
Okay, because when I met Corey at the Flood Hub in December, like he clued me in on some of the data sets he was talking through earlier, and I dropped into kind of Swift Mud Data World, and I was honestly kind of embarrassed. Like a lot of the stuff they work on, I didn't even realize. There's just like a wealth of information there, and I know it'll be useful to some of you.
Well, don't be embarrassed. Some of that would be on us for not getting the word out better.
Well, this will be a good chance, hopefully, to do that, at least to the GIS folks in the region. And then, Corey, I think we were kind of on the same wavelength there, because like the stuff like you and Marcus and Linda and Sarah from Hillsborough County were just talking through, like in terms of survey responses about things you're working on. I was kind of thinking in one of our future instances, we could do what you were just talking about, is like not some big PowerPoint, but just, you know, hop on for like 5 or 10 minutes each and share a cool project that you're working on, that you kind of have a sense that the group might, you know, get some use out of, get some ideas out of. So I'd like to coordinate that with you all, if that's good with you. And the only other idea I had, like coming up is, I stole from Crystal at UF. She mentioned, hey, there's a lot of housing data gaps in your area that we identified in December. You know, maybe we should contact the Schimberg Center and see if they might want to join us at a future instance. So does anybody have any comments or concerns about what I just talked through? Okay, cool. Well, I'll be in touch about those different kinds of presentation opportunities, whether they're like more of a formal presentation or just kind of like the lightning talk style. And I'm really sorry, I just realized I went over time. I didn't realize it was after 11. So I'm gonna keep exploring those platform ideas, and that's it. So I appreciate everybody hanging in with me past 11 o'clock. And like I said, I will put together Nate's presentation, the chat, the data gaps doc, and some other things, and send those out to you after this meeting. So I appreciate your time, and I hope you have a great week and weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Ashley. Thank you.
All right, thank you.